Hey YouTube, well, it's another day. I got Taylor, Boo Boo, and I'm over here getting ready to start finishing up TIG welding the driver's side exhaust. Taylor's over here editing videos to get them ready for you guys on YouTube, and making sure that Boo Boo's well happy there. We've got a little more work to do today. We burn up a few drill bits. Well, no, the drill bit lasted. The drill didn't. We burned up a drill. It was just a cheapy $20 drill there from your favorite tool store, and we took that one back, got another one. We were drilling the 5/8 holes in the little tubes for that we welded on the exhaust for the injectors, cross drilling that hole down into the exhaust, and now we're getting ready to weld these little cups in for the injector seats. So I'll turn that around and show it to you. All right, so here's where I'm talking about. We drilled the hole. We drilled a hole down in through here, and got those all cross drilled. And then we've got these little cups here that slide down in here. They're the same cups that we used on the upper half on the fuel rail. We got those out of the junkyard from Johnny Shrout there at our favorite junkyard, and those I think came off of a Lincoln fuel rail. So we had to take a couple different motors there because we needed 16 of them so we could have them top and bottom of those injectors. We just cut them off, dressed them down, made them fit, and now we're getting ready to go in, TIG weld those around the outside, and that'll give us our injector mount. So we got those cups welded in there. We got to make some brackets so that we can bolt these down so that it holds the pressure in the rail. So I took some pieces that I cut off the other fuel rail, cut them down into just this bracket here. I'm going to take that, weld those right in there to give us something to mount to, and then we can run a bolt between here and here. I'll weld another tab right to here. I've got a matching tab laying. Oh, it's right here. Got a matching tab laying here. So we'll lay a couple of tabs on there. on both ends. That should hold it down tight. We'll look. I don't think we'll need one here in the middle, but if we do, we'll add a third one. And that should hold the injector in the exhaust and keep the fuel rail sealed on the injector as well. So we'll see how that goes. We'll show you on the other exhaust that's already done how these mounts turned out. So we got the header all done and it's painted and ready to go. We got to bolt the injectors on up here, get the fuel rails on there, get the spark plugs mounted down in here. We left the baffles out. My exhaust baffles, they're laying here with the grinder. That's just the next size smaller diameter pipe. It's got a washer welded on the end of it. That's like a fender washer here. That keeps the, if you look at how that washer fits on the pipe, that just keeps the baffle from being able to slide down inside the pipe too far. When you slide it in there, it reduces the hole size a little bit. When I made those baffles, I took a die grinder, made a slit across here, then used an air hammer just to knock those in. And that looks like that from that end. And see, from that end you can see that there's some of them holes down through there. It's also got the big hole in it there for the spark plug to clear when it gets in the exhaust. When we run those at Cletus and Cars or any of the flame throwing events, we'll probably take the baffles out. So while we had those out, we decided we would change the spark plugs over here and put some new spark plug wires on. We've got these old Excel wires, and I put those on back in about 2010. So they're getting to be 10 years old. It's time to replace those. That second set of plug wires, the blue set, those run down here to this distributor that I built several years ago. I took a regular HEI, shortened it so that it would line up with that other pulley over there, and then put ball bearings in it. It also has a greaser back here on the back of the and that way you can keep grease in the bearings. It's got a nice turnbuckle there for being able to adjust the belt, and it just mounted right here to the spacer for the alternator, and came down with a bracket bolted in there. But that's what runs my 8 spark plugs for the exhaust. It doesn't spin at an exact timed rate with the motor. In fact, it turns a little faster than the motor does. I've never put an exact tachometer on it to see how many RPM difference there is. But when you check pulley sizes, that sort of thing, it's getting some good RPM going in there. So we've got a new set of MSD Street Fire plug wires that we'll custom make to the length that we're putting in there. And we've got some AC Delco 41 629s that we're going to run in the motor. That's a ZZ4 crate motor that's had the head changed. And so the ZZ4 motor calls for a 40 thousandths plug gap. We're going to go to about a 43 thousandths plug gap because we added that street fire ignition. We can go just a tad bit wider. We're going to take the plugs that we ran down in the cylinders on the motor and run them up here. So we're going to recycle those plugs up to here, and then maybe we'll keep an extra backup set with us just in case. But making lots of upgrades, one piece at a time, cleaning up welds, fixing things that we see can use a little upgrade and make things look a little cleaner. The truck always looks the same when I get it done. You always look at it and go, well, I see a few little changes, but the rat rod pretty well stays the same no matter what, and I'm comfortable with that. I like the slight little modifications that you always do, and so we're going to get the plugs changed, get those manifolds put on, and then we got to wire the injectors after that. That'll be the next thing towards seeing how big a flame we can get out of this thing. So check back in here in a little bit. Well, we stayed up late last night working on the rat rod. We got the new spark plug wires put on, new spark plugs put in the motor. We got the old spark plugs that came out of the motor moved out to the exhaust. We fired it up. It's got no baffles in the exhaust. It's been a lot of years since I've heard it with no baffles. It's loud, but sounds good. We fired up the coils on the spark plugs on the exhaust and didn't get any spark. So we tore into that HEI to see what we could find. We originally found some bad connections and stuff in there, but even then we could only get a spark part of the time. Looked at the cap, found some cracks. I think maybe that's the problem. We went and got a new cap, rotor, and coil. We had the module tested, and we checked the ohm rating of the pickup coil, and it appears to be good. We've got everything going back together, and we're going to set this up, see if we can get it all put back together, get the wires on, and fire it up, see if we got a spark in that exhaust. That's going to be the first step, and then we'll get those fuel injectors wired up to a switch in the dash there where we can control it and see what we get. Well, we got that cap and rotor on, and I decided while I was there to add an extra ground to that distributor. One of the screws that was inside the distributor didn't seem to want to tighten down real tight, and that's the screw that grounds the module. The other screw tightened down real tight, and so I decided I would run a second ground. I ran it down by the frame right where the ground strap runs to the motor, and so I know I've got a good solid ground there. I soldered that into the ground wire on the HEI distributor. If you notice, I took a Scotch-Brite pad and cleaned up the wiring on the distributor before I soldered it. GM in the late 70s, early 80s kind of skimped on their wire that they used on a lot of vehicles, and it was not low oxygen copper, so therefore it corroded, and so sometimes those wires get brittle and break. It's a common problem with old square body trucks and things like that, having to replace wiring, tail lights and things that they get exposed all the time. So I went in, cleaned that up, soldered it up, put some new heat shrink on it, got that all put together. As you saw, there was good spark in the exhaust. So now we're ready to go in and get some fuel put to those. And so here, we'll get started on that. Well, YouTube, we got the cap all on there. We even gave it a custom paint job there, put a little smoke in the red paint, and went through here, got the injectors wired up, got them all loomed up across the back here. It all runs across the back with the hose and then up into the firewall. Everything is wired up, hooked up. It's been leak tested. we had one little pinhole we had to pull a fuel rail off and tack the little hole shut, and we got all that together, and it's pouring down rain outside, and so tonight's not the night to check it out and see how it works, but appreciate you guys spending your time with me, and we're going to get this checked out. We'll show you in the next video how it turned out.